Disney movies are funny, but sometimes they have a totally different meaning when you rewatch them as an adult. Wait until you hear about the very first Disney joke of its kind in a very unexpected movie. If you love Disney, make sure to subscribe to The Things and give this video a big thumbs up. Now let's check out the 20 adult jokes in Disney movies you never understood as a kid. Too familiar with vegetables. Remember that vegetables joke from Ratatouille? It happens when Skinner finds Remy in the pantry and asks him what he's doing there. Trying to get away with it, Remy stutters and says he's just trying to get familiar with the vegetables so he'll know what he's doing in the kitchen. Poor Remy is totally scared of Skinner. Skinner, of course, yells at him, and when the pantry door closes, you can hear Skinner say that one can get too familiar with the vegetables. Do you know what he meant? The adults probably got a good chuckle out of this one, and it's also crazy to believe that these words came out of the mouth of a Disney character. The Narcissist joke. This joke comes from Hercules. We've all heard of the term God complex, but Greek mythology does actually have a god whose name translates into this complex. Remember when Hermes said that he hasn't seen this much love in a room since Narcissus discovered himself? Well, God Narcissus gave the name to narcissism, a personality disorder that is strongly connected to a God complex. Narcissism is all about thinking you know everything and having a self-righteous attitude. And you can imagine what kind of self-love Hermes was talking about with that narcissist joke. It looks like this Greek god really did enjoy discovering himself, didn't he? Oedipus problems. No child should ever hear about Oedipus or know what that is. But if you saw Hercules, there's a good chance you did. It just probably went over your head. Let's just say that Oedipus was a god that took it way too far and kept it all in the family, if you know what we mean. Hercules mentioned the Oedipus play and said that he thought he had problems, but watching Oedipus made him realize how normal he actually was. If you know the crazy story behind this Greek god, this sentence will probably make more sense. Buzz reaction. Okay, this is a pretty shocking one, even for Disney. It's a sneaky moment, but thankfully most kids didn't really know what was happening. At least we hope they didn't. You know Jessie from Toy Story, right? Do you remember what happened when Buzz Lightyear first saw Jessie? Adults have probably seen that moment as something completely different than kids did. Buzz's wings raised up the moment he saw Jessie, and there were plenty of adults that speculate Buzz got really excited. If you're still a kid watching this, move along. There's nothing to see here. Top-down truck stop. Okay, this one is really unexpected. Not even car movies are safe from Disney's inappropriate jokes. This one is pretty sneaky and not noticeable unless you saw real-life signs similar to this one. This sign says that this is a top-down truck stop, and it comes with all convertible waitresses. It's a very subtle joke, but the top-down kind of gives it away. Of course, cars having a top-down isn't that controversial, but think of it in a different way. Add the convertible waitress, and there you have it. A little bit too much, isn't it? Tiny little problem. We're not even close to being done with the adult jokes. There's another Ratatouille scene that comes off as pretty subtle, but we bet most adults were able to see the humor in it. Linguini is trying really hard to tell Colette about Chef Remy, but he just can't. He ends up almost admitting that he loves her, and then goes on to say that he has something that's sort of disturbing. He continues to stutter, saying he has something tiny and little which makes Colette look down. And you know where she looks. Seriously, how many innuendos does this movie have? The moving Earth. Aladdin has plenty of innuendos, but one of our favorite one happens in Aladdin and the King of Thieves. This joke probably flew over our radar when we were kids because most of us probably didn't even know what it means to go on a honeymoon. When Aladdin and Jasmine have a wedding, you can see the ground shaking. Genie makes a remark that the Earth wasn't supposed to move until the honeymoon. The moving Earth and the honeymoon put together, we're pretty sure most adults were able to figure out what Genie was hinting at, and we kind of wish he didn't. Foot size. These jokes never end. Even Frozen wasn't exactly safe from extremely subtle innuendos. Talking about the size of your feet might not mean much when you're a kid, but every adult knows the hidden and kinds of inappropriate meaning behind the length of your feet. Remember when Kristoff asked Anna about Hans? He wanted to know his foot size, to which Anna replies that the size of your feet doesn't matter. When you're an adult, the sentence that size doesn't matter has a different meaning. Add the feet and you can really make an inappropriate moment out of it. A busy boy. We're surprised this one even made it through because it's pretty awful when you think about it. 101 Dalmatians made us ask plenty of why questions when it comes to Cruella de Vil, but it looks like Roger wasn't so innocent either. Remember when Roger told Cruella that Anita's pregnant? He then said they're having puppies too. Cruella, of course, then told Roger that he's definitely been a busy boy. Pretty sure Cruella implied that Anita was also pregnant with puppies as well as babies, and Roger was definitely busy, if you know what she means. Chased. Out of all Disney movies, you definitely need to rewatch Aladdin because a lot of the scenes will make a lot more sense when you're an adult. Remember the part where she gets chased through the women-only house? Those are some pretty gorgeous ladies. Adults will chuckle when they realize that he's being chased because he wants to use certain services in that house without actually paying for them because he's too poor. Yep, those ladies offer the oldest profession in the world. It's a very subtle reference, but we're pretty sure most adults were able to see a different meaning to this scene. Pollination. No Disney movie is safe from innuendos, but the good news is, they'll only make sense when you grow up. A Bug's Life is one of those movies too. In the same scene, you can see two fleas catcalling Francis. In case you're not familiar with the term, catcalling is when people whistle or yell something suggestive and inappropriate after a person, mostly women. In this case, the two male fleas call her a cutie and ask her if she'd like to pollinate with a real bug. It's a bug version of what a lot of women go through every day, and we all know what pollination actually means, don't we? Pitching a tent. Here's a Disney movie we never really talk about. We don't even give enough credit to the hilarious movie that is The Emperor's New Groove, but it's actually one of the best Disney movies ever. Rewatch it as an adult and pay attention to the moment where Kronk falls asleep outside, holding his teddy bear. Check out that small tent placed on his body. If you're an adult, you probably don't need any other explanation why this scene is much more hilarious and far more inappropriate than it should be. Seriously, this is a bit too much, even for Disney. It's in the stars. Can you feel the love tonight? We kind of wish we didn't. The Lion King has plenty of hidden moments, but one of the biggest ones is actually written in the stars. You probably know what we're talking about, right? This observation actually originally first came from a little kid, but for the majority of the time it went unnoticed. Remember when Simba, Pumbaa, and Timon lie on their backs and look at the stars? Simba goes up to the edge of the cliff, lies down, and raises up some dust. The dust turns into 3 letters, and they're actually pretty shocking. By the way, Disney argues that the E is actually an F, but we're not buying it. Lemon Party. Have you ever heard of this term? It's a meme from 2002 that's usually used as a clickbait or so-called trolling, similar to what people do with the Rick and Roll. If you've spent a while on the internet, you've probably seen it. But do you know that the scene was sort of recreated in Cars 2? It starts with the Lemons, a group of jealous old cars who throw a party with lemons. A lemon party. It gave old school internet users a pretty good chuckle and a slightly nostalgic moment with an element of surprise, because you'd never expect a lemon party in Cars 2. Flashing. Cars has another moment with a pretty subtle adult joke you probably missed. You've probably heard of the term groupies, right? Remember the moment when Lightning McQueen gets his big win? 2 female fans rush to him and say they're his biggest fans, and then they flash him with their headlights. But luckily, most kids thought the 2 cars were just taking a picture of their idol. It's a solid reminder that Disney can sneak in an adult joke in just about any movie there is. Eyes up here. We're giving a special mention to the Minions, even though they're not a Disney product. We all know that Minions can be pretty raunchy, and if you pay close attention as an adult, you'll notice a huge difference in how you've been perceiving these jokes. In the Minion movie, you can see the Minions try to access the Tower of London. In their true style, they try to, of course, stay on top of each other to dress as a woman. Right in front of the tower, you see a Frenchman staring at the bottom Minion's eyes. If you know what we mean, it seems that the eyes are up here problem never goes away, not even in the Minion world. Good at multiplying. Speaking of Disney movies we never mention, Zootopia is also one of those underrated movies a lot of adults will laugh at when they realize just how many hidden jokes you can actually find. It's amazing to see that they can make a movie for kids at the same time as they can make the same movie for adults. Remember when Judy Hopps calls out Nick Wilde's tax evasion and says that bunnies are good at multiplying? Sure, she might talk about math and taxes, but we all know what she's really referring to. Leaving you alone. We have to give an honorable mention to one of the jokes that are pretty subtle, but too good to never mention. Do you remember the scene where Jane was drawing Tarzan and gushed over his eyes? Her dad noticed it and thought he'd throw in a subtle joke most parents probably understood better than kids. He ends up asking her if Jane wants to be left alone with her drawing of the gorgeous Tarzan, if you know what he means. Seriously, this is pretty subtle, but all adults know what her dad is actually talking about. The beads. But we also have to talk about this pretty inappropriate moment you can find in Cinderella. The original Cinderella is pretty adorable with its singing mice, and we have to admit that Jacques and Gus were our favorites. But remember the bead scene? We're not really sure what's happening, but it did make us feel pretty uncomfortable. It gets even worse when you realize that these are beads. It'll only make sense when you grow up, but we kind of hope you never do. Seriously, Disney, what's with the dirty jokes? Cut my cord. But one of the most subtle jokes, and probably the most shocking one, comes from the Rugrats movie. It's not a Disney movie, but we just had to sneak it in because this just proves that no kid movie is safe. During This World Is Something New to Me, there's a lot of times when the babies look inside their diapers. Smith says that they cut his cord, but when Iggy Pop looks down and says, "Consider yourself lucky," it might seem like a totally innocent joke about cutting the umbilical cord, but it's actually a first joke about cutting something totally different. But hey, it went unnoticed by the kids while the adults had a good laugh.
When we found out that you were voicing Gomez Addams, we literally jumped for joy. You're the perfect man for the role, Oscar Isaac. It's just too bad that you weren't able to play Gomez in a live-action setting because you totally look the part. We loved how your parenting skills evolved from the beginning of the movie to the end, and how you finally allowed Pugsley to be his own man. You and Charlize Theron did an amazing job at voicing the most morbid couple of the century.
It's home.
The new Addams Family remake is jam-packed with adult references that children can't even begin to comprehend. The Addams Family is celebrated for its dark puns, wicked actions, and deranged family values. Stay tuned as we reveal the top 10 jokes in the Addams Family that only adults will understand. Morticia's wedding gown. The 2019 remake of The Addams Family kicks things off 13 years in the past, on Gomez and Morticia's wedding day to be exact. It's here that we see the future Mrs. Addams being bolted and screwed into her wedding gown. While this scene may seem a little absurd, it's a jab at the past. The bolts and screws serve to remind us of how women used to wear super tight corsets to abide by society's standards. Funny enough, being bolted and screwed into a wedding dress goes hand in hand with the struggles of wearing and breathing while wearing a garment that has often been referred to as a torture device. On Wednesdays, we wear pink. Wednesday Addams is the princess of darkness, but after befriending the most unlikely person, she decides to attend the local junior high. Wednesday starts wearing the color pink despite her mother's many protests. In a desperate attempt to wean Wednesday off of bright colors, Morticia tells her that pink is a gateway color, which references a statement often used by parents when it comes to illegal substances. Morticia was afraid that by wearing pink, Wednesday would slowly transform into a girly girl. The missing clown. It isn't rare for kids' movies to reference some of the classics, which is why Pennywise the Clown was incorporated in the 2019 remake of The Addams Family. When Wednesday walks into the den with a red balloon in hand, Morticia comments on how there's usually a murderous clown attached to red balloons. The joke is taken a step further when Wednesday confesses that she doesn't know what a balloon is, hinting at her lack of a normal childhood. Public school. Parents want the best for their children, which is why many of them aim to send their kids to private schools. Although there's nothing wrong with attending public schools, they sort of get a bad reputation. When Morticia and Grandma come face to face with Wednesday's new look, Grandma leans over and says, "I warned you about sending her to public school." This hilarious joke had adults chuckling in no time. It's an ongoing joke that public school can negatively impact a teenager's behavior, but evidently that isn't always the case. Cremated makeup. When it comes to playing dress-up, Morticia Addams has the gothic look down pat. And if there's one thing she doesn't play around with, it's her classic smoky-eyed look. But if you thought Morticia used store-bought eyeshadows, then you were sorely mistaken. We find out that Morticia uses the cremains from an urn to darken her eyelids. Clearly, Morticia has no moral issues with using her ancestors' ashes as a makeup replacement. The town of Assimilation. Younger viewers may think that the naming of Assimilation Town was done at random, but that's far from the truth. The Addams Family hints at the importance of embracing your true self instead of taking the easy way out and blending in with the crowd. Margot Needler aims to turn everyone in the town of Assimilation into a carbon copy of her very own family. This pun didn't go unnoticed by adults, but managed to slip by younger audiences. It's quiet, too quiet. Every parent knows that a house filled with children is meant to be noisy, so when things get quiet, it's usually because something fishy is going on. Gomez had parents everywhere laughing when he said,
It's quiet, too quiet.
because that meant that something bad was about to happen. Something explosive was well underway, and Pugsley had his name written all over it. Cousin It's Ride. You know a movie is going to be good when Snoop Dogg joins the cast. Snoop voiced the character Cousin It in the 2019 remake, and his scenes had kids clutching their sides with laughter. Fans noticed that Cousin It's license plate read CUZ, which was a way of honoring Snoop Dogg's role in the film. After all, Snoop did release a song called One Blood, One Cuz, as well as a collaborative studio album called Cousins. There are so many adult jokes in the 2019 remake of The Addams Family that it's hard to catch them all. Did you notice any on your own? Tell us all about them in the comments. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel and don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up.